Hello everyone. So, hello everyone in One Piece world and everything else. Um, so, I've been thinking about this theory for a while, and ever since we got to about Wano ish. Um, but O'Hara kind of jump started it, but I think he left out quite a bit. So in O'Hara's theory, he talks about the island where the Shandorians are from, and it's splitting up, and how that is the One Piece and everything else. And I don't think it's the One Piece. I think it is like inspiration for the One Piece. Like and how we know about that is like the Shandorians are based off like the Native Americans, more specifically the Aztecs, and their Native Americans like inspired the government for you know America, and they structured their government. A lot of it, their Native Americans' government is influences the United States government. So I think that's how the One Piece is with the Shandorians. It's not that the One Piece is there, that the inspiration for the One Piece is there. So, anyhow, my theory, in a nutshell, is that that Wano is Pluton, and I know that seems a little like what? No, that's not possible. But what I'm going to go over will establish how Wano might be Pluton. So I'm going to first go over what we know about the ancient kingdom. The first thing is we know it's the enemy of the world government. We know this through the fact that they have the Void Century, how they destroyed O'Hara because they wanted to say the name of the ancient kingdom, and various things of that nature. We know that they're friends to various races. We know this through the poneglyphs that are in Fishman Island and Shandorian and so on. They made their history off of these poneglyphs so that their history could not be fully wiped out. They have a leader by the name of Joy Boy, and they had 3 ancient weapons. Their history was wiped out from the world, like I said, and known as the Void Century. And the last thing we know is the descendants of this kingdom have the initial D for their middle name. What do we know about the poneglyphs? So, most people either discover the poneglyphs by accident, or they discover it by reaching the last island in the Grand Line and finding information that, hey, you have to go back and discover these poneglyphs and to find the last island. Now, most people separate the poneglyphs into 3 groups. The 3 groups, according to Big Mom, are the road poneglyphs, which are distinguished by the red color. We have the Rio poneglyphs, which tells the history of the history of the ancient kingdom, and then we have the historical poneglyphs that just tell basic lost history and stuff. I say there's 5. The 2 additional ones is the what I call locator poneglyphs. These ones locate the ancient weapons. We have Pluton being located at Alabasta Poneglyph, and we have the Poseidon being located at Shandorian Poneglyph. Then we have The last type of poneglyph, which I call the special poneglyph, also known as like basically data dump poneglyphs. We have the Poseidon apology letter, and then the lodestone information stone at the lodestone island. What we also know, and I kind of theorize, is that each locator poneglyphs points to a road poneglyph. And what I mean by that is Shandorian poneglyph tells you where Poseidon is located, which is, as we know, Fishman Island. On Fishman Island, we find the road poneglyph, or at least we know Roger did. The Alabasta one tells you where Pluton is. And if my theory is right, Pluton is located in Wano, and Wano is where we get the other road poneglyph. We haven't found the one that locates Uranus, but we know the road poneglyph on top of Zo, or Zanisha, is there, and we know that Zanisha is connected to an ancient weapon. We can't specify if it's Pluton or Uranus for sure, but I believe that it is Uranus. And the last thing we know for sure is poneglyphs seem to be located where the ancient kingdom's allies were. So what do we know about these ancient weapons? Well, the world government calls them weapons of mass destruction. And seeing as the world government lies about everything, like everything, from the Void Century, from like just even during the war arc, like how they tried to propagandize that. They propagandize the Marines as the good people, even though they're not. How they lie about who really took down the Seven Warlords, with giving Smoker the credit and so on. So they lie about a lot of things. So my hypothesis is that they're lying about the ancient weapons. I don't believe they're ancient weapons. I believe that they're something else. I do believe that there are weapons to the world government, but to the people at large, they are not. And as far as them being weapons of mass destruction capable of destroying an island, we know from the Buster Call that the world government does that. But we also know that the world government is kind of the polar opposite of the ancient kingdom. So if they're going around destroying islands, I don't think that the ancient weapons are meant to destroy islands. The other thing we know is Poseidon is actually a title. We know this through King Neptune talking to Nico Robin. He goes over and talks, they have a conversation about Poseidon, and he informs her that Poseidon is actually a title, that Shirahoshi is Poseidon. And Poseidon has the power to control Sea Kings. The only other thing we know about Poseidon is that Joy Boy promised the original Poseidon, or Poseidon during the Void Century, that he would take their people out of Fishman Island and bring them to the surface. What we know about Pluton, the only thing we know for sure about Pluton is it's a warship. Other than the fact that Pluton's locator is in Alabasta, there's a blueprints at Water 7 of when they made it, and the rumor that that in Alabasta that Pluton is buried somewhere in Alabasta. So beyond that, we don't really know much more. What we know about Uranus, or I believe to be Uranus, is Zanisha. Zanisha is an island elephant that can communicate with the Kazuki family, and could, like I said, could be either Pluton or Uranus, although I believe that's Uranus. We also know that elephants are herd animals. So the question is, where is Zanisha's herd? I believe it's in the Florian Triangle. We see them after Thriller Bark. What we know about Zanisha's is that they have troubled waters around them, and they create a fog around them so that it's hard to see them, and you can't get to them with the only way to get to them is the paper thing, I forget what it is called, to that specific island. But what's the similarities between the ancient weapons that we know of? Well, the similarities that we know of is that they're both have commanders. The Mononosuke is the commander of Zanisha, and Shirahoshi is the commander of the Sea Kings. And so when we trying to apply that logic with Pluton being a ship, well, what's a commander of a ship? It's a captain. And granted, a ship without a captain is just a large water paperweight, or a symbol, nothing more. But a ship, or a captain without a ship, is still a captain. He can command his crew, he can fight, he can flee, he can do various things. The other thing we know about the ancient weapons that they're in common is they are inherited. Now with the Poseidon, it's inherited through the female line of the royal family. And with, like I said, I believe Uranus is through the male line of the Kazuki family. So, how is Pluton inherited? Well, I'm going to answer that a little bit later. I still kind of want to go on the ancient weapons for a little bit. So, could the ancient weapons not be weapons? And if not, what other possible uses could they be? Well, we know that Poseidon is supposed to haul Noah, filled with her people, with the Sea Kings to the surface. But has this been foreshadowed elsewhere? Well, when Noah was falling on top of Fishman Island, we know that Poseidon used the power of the Sea Kings to grab onto Noah to prevent Noah from falling on top of Fishman Island, hence grabbing and steering a ship. The other foreshadowing is Bo Hancock's ship. The Perfume Yoda, I believe it's called, has two snakes that looks like Sea Kings, although not. But they're used to steer the ship. Okay, so basically, Sea Kings can be used to steer the ship. On a side note, what's interesting is I've also noted that the ancient weapons kind of loosely parallel the types of hockey. If you had the power of Poseidon, you could theoretically send all the Sea Kings out and observe every single island. They can stick their heads out and be able to watch the islands, basically loosely connecting to observation hockey. If you can communicate long distances with them, you could theoretically watch the world. Kind of a blown up version of observation hockey. Well, what possible alternatives do we have for Zanisha? I have a loose one with Kaido. Kaido lifts Onigashima with the back of his power. Now, it's kind of loose, kind of weak. But the other one is the Germa Kingdom is a nation built on the backs of giant snails. So, hauling a kingdom, just as Zanisha is hauling an island. So, Sea Kings are used to pull a ship. Zanisha is used to pull an island or haul an island. So, ships, island. Is there any other parallels like that with maybe Pluton? And then continuing with the side note of the hockey, if you were to ride on top of Zanisha, you would have the strongest ship that in existence. You would have a hard time bringing it down. It's sort of a loose representation of armament hockey. But again, what's the alternatives for ships for Pluton? So again, all we know of Pluton is that it's a ship that the world government says has the power to destroy an island. If it has the power to destroy an island, it would stand to reason that the ship is very large. The largest ship in One Piece is Gecko Moria's ship, the Thriller Bark, which is an island ship. Another island ship is in the movie Strong World, that Oda wrote. So even though it may not be canon, I believe that we can still use it for inspiration to the story. And in that movie, it had a flying island ship. So, the reason why I think Zanisha is not used as an alternative for a ship is because of the blueprints. The blueprints in Water 7 are proved to be valid through Rob Lucci. And when Frankie shows Rob Lucci, here's our blueprints, flips through it really quick so that he can verify that it's the real thing, and then destroys it. Now, if you took an island and made alterations so that it could be a ship, you would be able to make blueprints off of it. Now, okay, so what is Pluton? So, we established that there's a commander for fishermen. We've established that there's commander for Zanishas. If Pluton is a ship, what does that mean? Well, like I said, a ship needs a captain or commander. Rob Lucci verified that it was a ship and with Pluton blueprints. Now, I don't think that was an island ship used. And I know that seems a little confusing, what I've said, but just hear me out. What things do we know about during that arc specifically? We know that Tom was facing execution because of the fact that he built Goldie Rogers' ship. Now, why might you say that? Because say that's connected at all? Is because any person could have come to Tom and said, hey, can you build me Goldie Rogers' ship? And once done, they could say, hey, I have the One Piece because I have Goldie Rogers' ship. It's the same with Pluton. Pluton has... that anyone could go up to Tom or Frankie and say, hey, build me Pluton, and therefore now I have the world-destructing ship. It's a symbol. Like I've said earlier, the ship is a symbol. Now, it could be a living ship, just like Mary Go was, but as I believe those spirits are dependent on love for the ship, would it still be alive 800 years later? That is doubtful. So, the power does not rest with the ship. The other thing is, we know with Frankie, he has the Battle Frankies. He's got the Battle Frankie 1, Battle Frankie 2, Battle Frankie 3, Battle Frankie 4. So, with shipwrights, and with Tom, we have the Puffing Tom. So, with shipwrights, they name it after themselves or some goal or whatever, and they'll reuse that name often enough to warrant the fact that Poseidon, the blueprints for Poseidon could be Poseidon Mark 1 or Mark 2 or however down the line it was. Was it the final product? Yes and no. And I'll get to that later. But the other thing that kind of escaping my mind right at this moment is, the Going Merry. So, Going Merry was destroyed, but we know through the little Going Merry, I forget the exact name of it, that was used in Thriller Bark, the little steamboat thing, that the spirit of the Going Merry was carried on by the next ship. That could easily foreshadow Pluton. That Pluton was either destroyed or they were making the next ship, and therefore the spirit of it was continued on to the next ship. So, as I established, a ship without a captain is just driftwood, or a symbol of power of the captain. A captain, and so on. Let's see. So, what is Pluton's power? So, if Pluton is a ship, and we establish that commander for a ship is a captain, and so what would be the power of that captain? Well, a captain would need to communicate or command or listen to his crew. So I believe that is the voice of all things. So the voice of all things throughout the series have been able to listen to the Sea Kings, have been able to listen to Zanisha, has been able to listen to the poneglyphs, although not being able to read the poneglyphs, be able to understand its meaning. But a big clue happened in one of the recent chapters, 1019. So, if Power Pluton is with the captain, then what would it look like? In chapter 1019, Luffy uses the power of the voice of all things to reaffirm Momo that, hey, I'm gonna be back, I'm gonna kick Kaido's butt. But he also leads the Heart Pirates to his location telepathically. So I believe Pluton, or the commander of Pluton, is the power to command a crew. The larger his crew or group of allies is, the stronger his power would be. So, why can the person wielding the voice of all things be able to hear Sea Kings and Zanisha? It is possible that Pluton's ability to command telepathically allows him to listen on the conversations of these animals. May not be able to command them because that's not his power, but because his power is to command, he can hear his subordinates and so on. So how do these captains like Gold Roger and Luffy get the power? Did Oda just make a chosen one trope? No, I don't believe so. Let's look at the other ancient weapons. Poseidon's power is inherited through the female line of the royal kingdom of Riku, I believe that's how you say it. and Uranus is through the male line of this Kuzuki family. So, throughout the story, we are constantly told about the will of D. And when Roger finds Laughtail, as he calls it, he finds the connection between the Void Century, the Ancient Kingdom, and the Will of D. Or not the Ancient Kingdom, sorry, the Ancient Weapons specifically. So, lost knowledge. So, how I think of that is lost knowledge on the weapons for the those to inherit the weapons. Lost knowledge, weapons, inheritors. So, so it's the will of D. So how does a captain, get started or become a captain? Well, they start their own crew. I believe that Joy Boy, the alliances with the other races, was the captain that started the crew, so to speak. So the other two options that we have is they are voted in. They are voted in either by those that respect or trust the person to lead the crew. Well, Luffy has proven that multiple times. People keep putting their trust, their dreams, and so on top of him. The other way is through intimidation / holds the crew's fear. So intimidating people to vote for you, or they fear that the repercussions of not voting for them. And I believe that Blackbeard has that potential. So I believe at the moment the reason why Luffy and Blackbeard are coming to a head is because they're both inheritors of the Will of D. Now we go back to Water 7. The blueprints were kept as a just in case emergency plan in case someone bad gets the Pluton. Well, like I said, if they built someone like Blackbeard became Pluton, it'd be easy just to create Poseidon as a symbol, place someone who has a D initial there, and then everyone puts their hopes and dreams on him as he combats Blackbeard, vying for power of Pluton. Could easily could easily have an instruction at the end, maybe, possibly vaguely, of what to do if said thing happens. And the last thing is the previous captain could choose the new captain, which not out of the realm impossibly, but very unlikely. So what is the Will of D? So the Will of D is held by people of more than one race, like Jagger D. Saul. How is that even possible? Well, Oda likes to foreshadow a lot, and we might be able to get this answer through the flashback of Ace, Luffy, and Sabo. In Ace, Luffy's, and Sabo's flashback, they drink a cup of brotherhood. Now, this, and then share blood. What we know is after Ace has died, Luffy gains the ability to use Red Hawk, in a sense, a weakened but inherited version of Ace's power, which is the Flame Fruit. If Joy Boy was the leader of the Ancient Kingdom, and based off of my theory, would have the power of Pluton, he could make a cup of brotherhood with his crew, which would explain Blackbeard if he didn't vet all of his crew, or if he wasn't able to make sure that one of his crew members were, pure of heart. Like, for instance, in Whitebeard's little gang, Blackbeard was able to hide. If Joy Boy had that same problem because his crew was so large, he could have made a cup of brotherhood with a D-clan member, or future D-clan member, rather, that was cowardly and could not face death or whatever. All the tropes of the D-clan. Again, I noted that Goldie Roger finds out the meaning of the Void history, the ancient weapons, and the Will of D. What we also know through Coruscant is that they are the enemies of the gods, which we typically refer to, or not refer to, as we typically interpret that as the celestial dragons. And except for Blackbeard, the people with the D initial accept death with a smile. So, again, if there is a possibility that it's not ancient weapons, then why is the world government afraid of them? To answer that, we have to know the basic structure of the world government and how it might destroy them. Where the ancient kingdom had friends who were from different races, the world government enslaved them. They suppressed the population with high tribute, suppression of knowledge of the past, and keeping all technology to themselves. The only worldwide news source is from the world government, which lets them control the information. They have a large military force that is unlike any other in the world, that are used to eliminate any threat, whether it is a good thing or not. They are used as their propaganda face, to show the world that they are good, even though there is rotten evil under the surface. They benefit from the fact that the whole world is separated by every nation and culture, which is isolated from each other, for the fact that they are islands. This also promotes xenophobia and racism between the races that help the world government keep control, basically divide and conquer. It also makes it difficult for the rebellion to gather strength and gather an army or alliance. They are governed by a hidden ruler who no one knows about, with propaganda of an empty throne. The descendants of the 20, now 19 actually, who live in the life of instant pleasure, which includes slavery. The 5 elders who take orders from the hidden ruler and rule day to day of the government decisions. And the CP organization is the hidden arm of the 5 elders. So to be a weapon, the world government should fear it. It would have to solve or rival these things. So, my theory is that Joy Boy was Pluton, like I said. He became captain. He started he left his island and started making friends with everyone. And as he started becoming friends and allying with people, the voice of all things started to become stronger. He also met Poseidon and Uranus and became fast friends with them. With the theory of the sun god, I attribute that to Joy Boy. He is a lot like Luffy, because Luffy is like Roger, and Roger is like Nolan, and since all those 3 are connected, and Luffy is also referred to as Joy Boy in one of the recent chapters. I believe it was 1018, where Kaido kicks him off the island floating island and tells him that there's no way you could be Joy Boy, which sounds to me like a title, sort of like the title of the Pirate King. So he became friends with them. He became friends with the slaves and freed a lot of them. And I'm assuming that this is when the Busted Call was made. When he liberated Ireland or freed a lot of slaves, the world government, or the 20 kingdoms, went to that island and then destroyed all the inhabitants. And I believe when he saw something like the War's continent puller, or his race, being able to pull islands, that it dawned on him, what if I make my own country? Pull the islands that the slaves have been liberated on and combine them together to make a larger ship that everyone can be on. We have Zanisha could pull it. We have the Sea Kings who could also pull islands. And then we also have the continent pullers. We know through the vault in Marijoa that there was a gigantic straw hat. So there was giants on his crew. So it stands to reason that it's possible that he had continent pullers. The only other giant that we know of that had a straw hat was Oris Jr. So again, foreshadowing the continent puller as part of his crew. So as he was gathering islands, the reason why Pluton is viewed as a destroying warship that destroys island is, I believe that he would go to an island and liberate it, and then Zanisha and Poseidon would come and grab, and maybe even some giants would come and grab that island and then pull it away. So those that survivors of the 20 kingdoms would come back and the island would be gone, hence destroyed. And any evidence or sightings of Sea Kings and Poseidons or Zanishas would be viewed as iron destroyers as well. So here comes the war that lasts 100 years and everything. And I think that the 20 Kingdoms came up with a plan once they finally understood what was happening. They got him lured away from Pluton, or what will soon become Pluton, Wano, and lured him and the Uranus away. And then once he was past Poseidon, or Fishman Island, they created the Red Line, dividing the ancient weapons. So now all the Zanishas except for Zoe was on the other side of the Red Line, and the Red Line sat on top of Poseidon, and then Wano or what they were bringing everything together was on the other side. And then they surrounded Joy Boy and went to town to destroy him. He survived somehow, and that's where I believe that he and his allies were completely devastated. There was very few of them left. That's where he started going around with Uranus, making these indestructible poneglyphs. One of them, I believe, started off with Poseidon. Most likely unable to face her, he wrote a letter instead saying, "I'm sorry that I couldn't fulfill my promise with you." Now, So, what facts do I have to prove on these? Okay, so we have Poseidon's. We have a prophecy where Luffy will destroy the Red Line, or destroy Fisherman Island, but most people believe it'll be the Red Line as well. We have the prophecy, or the promise to bring Poseidon and her people to the surface. Of course, there needs to be a safe place for it, so one of two things must have happened. Joy Boy was making war to destroy, which doesn't seem to be his MO, and Oda's not that typical type of writer to make the protagonist to be someone who commits genocide. The other possibility is that he was creating a safe place for them to go, i.e. Wano. We have the prophecy of the New Dawn, which is new hope, new salvation, and we know that the Minks were are a race that is enslaved when caught, so they're constantly in worry of that. And then we have Wano with the desire to open up, and we have the Straw Hats dream, specifically Sanji, with the all blue. The only way that's possible is if the Red Line were to be destroyed. So Pluton has the power to command, and like I said, command, and I think he was building Wano as the ship of dreams or something. And if Wano was the sanctuary to be fulfilled or whatever, it would fulfill all these dreams. It would give the fishermen someplace safe to go to. It would give the Minks also someplace safe to go to. It would open up Wano to the world. All these dreams and hopes onto Luffy, which of course increases his power. So here's some unanswered questions that I'm going to go over. Was Joy Boy human? Personally, I don't think so. We get the clue with Pudding. Pudding is a race of the Third Eye tribe who has the ability to hear the voice of all things, although she doubts she can do it, seeing as she's half Third Eye tribe. Now, I believe Joy Boy was part of the Third Eye tribe, and with the base level of hearing all things, I think that's everything prior to Wano. Being able to understand poneglyphs without being able to read it, being able to hear other ancient weapons such as Poseidon's Sea Kings and Uranus's Zanishas and stuff, and I believe that's the base level. The captain of the Three-Eyed Tribe has the ability to then communicate telepathically to his crew. So the leader of the Three-Eyed Tribe, again, the cup of brotherhood that Joy Boy gave would be a great way to allow other people outside his race to inherit it. And we know that the Three-Eye Tribe is a very rare race because there's very few of them. With Pluton and the Fishman Island, they have the harbor of with Pluton, mermaids and fishmen have the harbor of Fishman Island, and I believe it was only saved because they wanted to use them as slaves, so on. But they have the natural protection of their environment. Zanisha is a gigantic elephant, very hard to conquer, so I believe that has the protection. And then Wano itself, with the whirlpools, the giant fish, and the impossibility of getting to it in of itself, that's what's its protection. I don't think the Three-Eyed Tribe had protection. I think they were the world government committed genocide on them. I think when Joy Boy lost, his tribe, he finds out that they died or being massacred. So his plan to continue the Pluton or will of destruction is to do the cup of brotherhood and adopt other people into his family. So what's about the straw hat? Well, throughout the straw hat is used, or throughout One Piece, the straw hat is used as a symbol. The symbol and what we know is constantly placed on Luffy. Help me, free me, right wrongs, things that are constantly brought up to Luffy, like, hey, you're the go-to person to go deal with these things. If Joy Boy was the sun god and person that liberated people, it would make sense as someone with a third eye on his forehead to cover that up with a straw hat. And I believe that his crew would also wear straw hats as a homage to that. So what about the fourth road poneglyphs? I believe it's with the giants, or maybe the continent polar subrace of giants. The continent polars are another clue about Wano being artificial. We have Oars, whose body is found on the frozen or snow island of part of Wano that Gecko Moria takes and captures Oars. So that's a clue. And then Onigashima, the giant skull on Onigashima, could possibly be Oars' father, because it's much larger than Oars. And that is also a clue that Wano might be artificial. And what I mean by that is not naturally made as a gigantic island that looks like it's been pieced together. So if the fourth road poneglyph is with the giants, and what I've established earlier, that there's a locator poneglyph that points to an ancient weapon, and then the ancient weapon's location has a poneglyph. Why doesn't the world government view giants as weapons of mass destruction too? One reason is they can enslave them. They can't enslave Sea Kings. They can't enslave Sea Kings. They can't enslave Zanisha. They either think that Pluton, the inheritor of Pluton, or the Pluton's race is destroyed, whatever it may be. I think it's not until Goldie Roger, that they realize that someone outside the Three-Eyed Tribe is able to inherit Pluton. So we have the world government can enslave them. They can also they're also trying to make artificial giants by using kids as experiments, and I believe that they wanted Luffy's devil fruit to be able to continue with their experiments with gigantification. I can't say the word. And then we have how are they going to destroy the Red Line? I think that Joy Boy was not able to figure that out, but he left it for his future generations to figure out. And then, but Luffy will do it by awakening his fruit and stretching his body up to be a giant and breaking the Red Line. I believe the poneglyphs are breadcrumbs. At Lodestar, which is nautical term for a destination mapping way to navigate yourself, that there it tells you to go find poneglyphs. And then, like I said, once you find the locator poneglyphs, it tells you where to find the weapons. And I believe that someone with the voice of all things, that's what Joy Boy relied on, is whoever's my inheritor through the will of D would be able to understand the meaning of the poneglyphs without being able to read it, and then follow the breadcrumbs to each ancient weapon, collecting them on the way, as well as the road poneglyph, and then finding the ancient kingdom. And I believe the ancient kingdom was Joy Boy's original island, the Three-Eyed Tribe Island. And I think that the ancient the 20 Kingdoms used that as bait. When they found out that possibly that Joy Boy was a third-eyed tribe, they went and tried to kill the Three-Eyed Tribe, and he went off and ripped it out of the left eye of the Shandorians. And then the war ensued, and I think that the Ennis Lobby was the Three-Eyed Tribe's island raft, so to speak, to get to Wano. Ennis Lobby has the most awakenings on it, and devil fruit awakenings. We have the Pika Pika from the light fruit, constant daylight. I believe that the hole that is constantly sucking up water is the awakening from Blackbeard's fruit. I believe that the ability to stop it from being sucked down is the awakening of the Fujitora's devil fruit, and the anchors that are placed with those that island is the awakening from the person who made the Red Line. So those four people combating each other, either together, one-on-one, whatever, and ultimately destroying the island, and then Joy Boy losing, and then the world government using that island as a propaganda thing. So, in conclusion, I believe Pluton is not a ship, it's the captain of the ship, and any ship will do. What matters is the captain and the crew, which is sort of a theme with One Piece. What matters is Luffy and his crew. And then with all the prophecies of going to the surface, New Dawn, opening up Wano, that all those prophecies are going to be fulfilled when Luffy discovers that he's Pluton, and realizes that he has to bring all the races together onto Wano. By doing so, it will dilute the world government's power because they can't divide and conquer. It would also reduce racism because people will get to know each other, and it will reduce xenophobia because people again will get to know each other. It will also help Chopper with his ability to cure all wounds or illnesses. We get that foreshadowing with the Shandorian and I said his name earlier. 400 years ago with Nolan. There we go. When the Shandorians were sick, Nolan brought medicine from another island by grouping all the islands together. Chopper would be able to gather all the medicine in the world and be able to cure all illnesses. But in order to gather all the islands, Luffy would have to destroy the Red Line, which solves Sanji's dream, and then and everything else. I think the reason why Goldie Roger laughed and called it a laugh tale is finding out that he's Pluton. That going to the final island, which would be possibly the Ancient Kingdom or whatever it may be, and finding out that Joy Boy figured out a way to carry on the will of Pluton through the descendants, or will of the descendants. And he laughed at even going so far as, I wish I lived in your era just to know you, type of thing. But I think he would have laughed finding out once he got there that he was Pluton, and then realizing that he doesn't have much time left, and Poseidon was not born yet, or just a baby, one of the two, and so would not be able to be used or be able to help with bringing the islands together. So he knew that he would have to wait a long time for that to enact, and he knew he didn't have the time because of his illness. So I think that's why he decided, hey, I'll get the generation next to go out, and then any strong descendant of D would then become the next inheritor of the will of D. So that's my theory. Most likely it's wrong. I don't know, but there's a lot of parallels. Oda likes using foreshadows and bringing them up again a lot. And so this is all based off of foreshadowing and then commonalities, using the other two ancient weapons to determine what Pluton is, and so on. I do believe that Joy Boy still had his original ship, Pluton. That's probably where the last poneglyph is. Maybe, I don't know. But nonetheless, I think Wano is supposed to inherit Pluton, or inherit the spirit of Pluton. And then Poseidon, Uranus, and the continent polars are supposed to pull all the islands together, and then whoever is the inheritor of the Will of D becomes the Pirate King. And oh, sorry, I forgot this last one. This foreshadowing of Haki relation is Haki, Conqueror's Haki. The other name for it is King's Haki. So the Pirate King, as in the strongest and the one with the most will, is in charge, and instead of making people pass out, he can communicate with other people and uplift them, sort of like rally them up inside their own minds. So that's my theory. Hopefully, some of it makes sense. Probably doesn't, but anyhow, hope you enjoy.